Downtown Paradise Bay is about to change forever. A massive new transit center has just been approved. It could transform mobility, reconnect the city, and reshape entire neighborhoods. Supporters call it a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Opponents say it's an unnecessary boondoggle that will destroy homes, erase a park, and even close an elementary school. And here's the twist. You'll get to help decide the political fallout. But more on that in a bit. You see, when Governor Timmons pledged state support for the Paradise Bay Business Park, the funding didn't just cover the bridge into the park, it also paid for a major expansion of the city's mass transportation system. And because of that, Mayor Elias has been pushing for a bold transit overhaul, reorienting and consolidating the train, tram, and bus stations into one modern facility, surrounded by transit-oriented development. He's long criticized the existing train station for facing away from most of downtown. That design makes pedestrian access difficult, severs local street connections, and creates barriers for buses and public safety services attempting to reach the Signal Hill area. A redesigned station could change all of that. It could open into downtown, restore roadway connections, and integrate transit into the fabric of the community. Sheila Johnson, however, sees things differently. She calls the plan a disaster in the making. She argues it will wipe out entire residential blocks, close an elementary school, erase the city's largest downtown park, and replace perfectly functional stations. She describes it as a fancy station that the city doesn't need and says the money should go towards expanding service instead. She's especially critical of the heated glass canopy, designed to stop snow from piling or dripping on riders, calling it an unnecessary luxury. But despite the controversy, the City Council approved the project unanimously in their final meeting before the election. And now, that election's in your hands. Voting for mayor starts right now in the Community tab. It's Mayor Elias versus Sheila Johnson, and it'll be open for 48 hours. Then, we'll move on to electing City Council members, which will be made up of real channel members, Twitch subs, and Patreon patrons, and they'll be able to propose and vote on projects. Head-to-head matchups will run daily for 24 hours over 8 days until the council is complete. And remember, these members can directly influence the future of Paradise Bay, so vote carefully. But first, in today's episode, we're going to build this new transit center and completely transform the neighborhoods around it. And because this is a huge project, we're going to be tackling transit in the next episode as well. In that episode, we'll rethink routes, expand service, rebuild a few blocks around the transit center, and add a mod that lets us completely customize the system. And if you're excited to have a bigger voice in the community, hit the like button. Or if you're already happy with the direction that the community's heading in, hit the like button for that too, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Or leave an emoji representing trains for the sake of engagement. But before we jump in, since the start of the year, I've been doing my best to lose weight. I've been working out more and really focusing on what I'm eating. And since January, I've dropped 20 pounds. One thing that's been really helpful for me is today's video sponsor, Factor, and their Calorie Smart meals, all of which are 550 calories or less. They make it easy to stay consistent. No cooking, no prepping, no portioning. Just grab a meal from the fridge, heat it up, and in 2 minutes, it's hot, ready, and delicious. And I don't feel like I'm compromising anything. And that's because all of Factor's meals are chef-crafted, restaurant quality, and delivered straight to your door. They even have breakfasts. You can add them to your box or swap them in for a regular meal. It's so easy to make Factor fit your routine. Factor offers 35 fresh meals every week to cater to almost any dietary preference. Whether you want Calorie Smart Keto, Protein Plus, Vegan and Vegetarian, or just the chef's choice, Factor's got you covered. So whether you're trying to lose weight like I am, or just want to eat great meals while saving time, they make it easy. If all that sounds good to you, check them out by going to factor75.com or clicking on the link below and using code 50cityplannerplays for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's 50cityplannerplays at factor75.com for 50% off plus free shipping. Using my link and code helps support the channel, and if you do it, I really appreciate it. Thanks again to longtime channel partner Factor for sponsoring another video. Now let's get back to it. In just a moment, we're going to be blasting away most of what you can see on the screen. But before we do that, I want to talk about a few mods that I'm adding into the build, make a couple of adjustments to what we did in the previous episode, and talk about the inspiration for today's build. Now, as far as the mods go, the first one I'm going to add is static ploppables, and in specific, the Mediterranean Heritage, Urban Promenades, and the base game static ploppables. If you're unfamiliar with this mod, it basically allows you to plop non-functional, non-terrain conforming versions of assets into the game. And it can be an absolute game changer when you're trying to create a completely custom building. Now, the only ploppable that I know that I need is the glass canopy from the Mediterranean Heritage End train station, but I've added a few others just in case. I've also added in the Commercial Workplaces Fix mod. From my understanding, this is a fix that's very similar to the 5 out of 5 bug for offices. Basically, the number of commercial workplaces isn't scaling, and as a result, you can have a high unemployment rate. So my hope is that adding this mod into the game will allow us to adjust our tax rates to something reasonable and reopen the college. So let's begin by taking a look at our current unemployment rate. We're currently at 8.6% or 9.4%. We're going to adjust our tax rates and make them something a bit more reasonable. We just made the entire tax system here fairly progressive. But I don't want to stop there. We'll do the exact same thing for industrial. We'll reset everything to 10% and we'll set office to 7. And that leaves us in a position where we're actively losing money, but I have a feeling things are going to turn around fairly quickly. But we're not done yet because we have to re-enable the university. And my guess is the university is not going to be an issue anymore because having more commercial jobs means that we're going to have more higher end jobs as well, considering a lot of the commercial businesses actually employ highly educated employees. So for the rest of the episode, keep an eye on how our budget's doing, and we'll check back in on our stats at the end of the episode. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the inspiration for today's build, Denver Union Station. When I first moved to Denver, Union Station was under construction and hadn't been operational for a number of years. But thanks to persistent activism from Dana Crawford and a number of passionate community members, this historic train station was refurbished and brought back to life. And today, it's the beating heart of downtown Denver. And that bit of public investment has led to a ton of private investment in the surrounding area. And it's led to an incredibly vibrant and beautiful place. A place that's connected to basically everywhere in the Denver region, and a place where you could grab a train to almost anywhere in the US. But it's more than just that. As a part of the Union Station project, both the roadway network and the pedestrian network was strengthened in this area, and roads that were previously disconnected were reconnected, ultimately leading to downtown Denver feeling like a much more cohesive and coherent place. Now, unfortunately, here in Paradise Bay, we don't have a historic train station. We have basically an Amshack and a custom tram station that really isn't all that great. But even though we don't have the historic bones here that Denver had, we're going to work it in anyway. We're going to be using a historic train station as the center of this build, and we'll add modern additions that make the whole thing feel brand new and very unique, and like it's the crown jewel of this community. So without further ado, let's get to building our transit center. And we begin with the exciting and the kind of sad part. We have to eliminate all of the existing transit facilities. So I'm going to de-zone a significant chunk of this first, and then we'll demolish the whole thing. Now I want to remove all the landscaping in this area and level things out. And I can see that there are a couple of areas where we have dips and drops, and I don't want any of those. They're going to make what we're about to do really, really challenging. So I'm going to grab those nodes and align everything to this height right here. And now the entire area is truly flat. So we're ready to begin. And the first thing that I want to do is plop our new train station. And we'll be going with the historic Central Station. And I want to back that out as far from School Street as I can while still leaving room for a track to pass. And that's probably a little bit too far this way. I'm going to use Move It to line this edge of the building up with this road right here, which I think will frame this area nicely. Now I want to add on to this facility. So I'm going to add on the extra platform, but I'm going to do this for a reason that you're not going to expect. And I'm also going to add on the rear exit. And since we're adding things, let's also add some commercial businesses. It'll bring some more activity to the site. Now, before we go any further, I want to make a couple of modifications to this station. The first is going to be in Better Bulldozer. I want to delete this track right here. And I'm going to replace it with a small pedestrian street. And I'm guessing right now you're thinking, I've lost my marbles. And maybe I have, but I have an idea that I think is going to work. That's going to be really neat. And it begins with this right here. Now, the whole reason that I've drawn this pedestrian road right here is that I can add a tram track to it. So I'm going to send that down and then back around right here. Now, one of the struggles that you can deal with when you're doing something like this is you can't actually select things that are underneath the building. Thankfully, I can grab this node and move it, pull it out, and then delete that. Now, there's a whole bunch of components of this asset that are in my way. And just to make this easy on myself, I'm going to get rid of some of it. So all of this landscaping, all of it's gone. Some of this is part of the sub-asset, sub-building. Some of it's part of the main building. So I do have to kind of go back and forth. Now I'll add the tram track to this. And for this, it's pretty easy. I just use the replace tool, add this here, and then I need to make sure that the directionality of this one-way is correct. And actually, that's not the problem. The problem is this turn is too tight. That's an easy fix. Perfect. Now that is a turn that the tram can make. So now we need to connect back in. And I think we'll do something like that. Now, the whole reason that I want to pull those together is we're going to replace the end here with a normal pedestrian street. And I'm doing that because I won't be able to have bi-directional service on this little stub that we had here. Now, the only thing that I'm not a huge fan of is this node is connecting straight in, and that would make a driver believe that they could drive straight into this facility. That's not going to work. And I think that this is pretty good. It's not 100% perfect, and we are still aligned right here. As much as I didn't want that to be aligned, I just don't think that there's a good way of preventing that without significantly reorienting the station, which I don't really want to do. This is completely fine. So we've got our trains, we've got our trams. I also want to get buses here. And I think the buses are going to go right about here. So we need to get rid of this parking lot. And then we'll take my absolute favorite asset, the small bus station, and throw that in right here. Here's the thing. I think it will orient better if we spin it around like this. And then I don't want vehicles driving back here. So I'm going to grab a pedestrian path and use this as the connection into this facility. Now, the way that I'm going to do this is to send this back to this road. And I'm doing that specifically because I want to have development right here. Now, I'm going to try to get this as close as I can to the train tracks. And I'm doing that specifically to open this area up for development. 3 units isn't a lot, but it's better than what we had. And then I need this to be bi-directional. So I'll upgrade this to be this bi-directional 2-lane bus-only road. And that should be perfect for us. The only thing I'm seeing is that we're not actually connected. And now we are. Perfect. And then on this pedestrian street, I don't want it to feel like you can run into the trains. So I'm going to add a key just so we have a little bit of a buffer there. Now, just thinking about it, we just removed all of the parking at this facility, with the exception of this stuff in the rear, which we're going to have to remove. So I think we're probably going to want to add a parking structure here, which I know is going to be a controversial decision. But ultimately, I think it's something that we probably have to do. And that's really because I want to have intercity train service here. So I'd like you to be able to drive to the train and take it to another city if that's something that you want to do. So I'm going to place this right about here. But I want to get this nice and straight with the train station. And there's a very specific reason for that we'll explore in just a moment. So to get that straight, I'm going to temporarily draw a road here. This actually might not be temporary. We'll explore this. That might be the correct orientation. It's just not over quite enough. So we'll do something like that. And then we'll run that road directly into our local street and make our connection. Now, I said that this might not be temporary because I have another idea. I want you to be able to walk from the parking structure into our pedestrian area. So I'll add a node right there. And I'll pedestrianize that. We'll probably need to add bollards or something so people don't drive around there. But that is very good. But here's the thing, this is relatively disconnected from the train station, which it's actually supposed to be serving. So I have an idea on how to connect this, and you're probably gonna think it's crazy, but it's gonna work out in the end. I've actually experimented with this quite a bit. I'm gonna grab this covered pedestrian bridge. We'll take it about 6.5 meters, and I'm gonna run it from the parking garage right in the corner here, directly into our train station. Now, this isn't perfect. We've got a little bit of work to do, and move it might throw us a couple of errors, but I think that we can make this look outstanding with a little bit of patience. So I'm just gonna grab all of these nodes and then grab the center and slide it into position. And now we have to do the real magic, which is making the pedestrian connections. This one is almost there. But when it actually connects, it kind of contorts and does some weird stuff. That means that that's going to work. So even though that looks terrible, don't worry about it. We're not going to look in there. And then over here, we're going to do something very similar on the inside. I just want to drop this down to ground level and then run this towards the door. So right now I'm actually inside of the station and I'm connecting to right here. So now you should be able to walk into the front of the train station, hop on this path, and walk directly into this parking garage. So we'll definitely double check on that later. But I want to make one more connection. This one's going to be uglier, but basically right in the center here. And we'll drop this one to ground level. And I'm not overly concerned about how this looks because we're going to be putting the canopy on top of here. Now, I am very curious about whether or not this is going to work. So there's a couple of things that I can do to test it. First, I want to get rid of the other parking here. But there's one thing I have to point out about this asset. I can't actually delete this invisible road. If I do, I'll actually break the asset. So that's why I deleted the parking here. If it comes back, I've got to delete it again. I'm not going to worry about that. As long as we don't have the parking spaces, people won't drive here. So I'll just get rid of that. And now we're completely in the clear, at least for the time being. Next, I'm going to crank the parking fee here, which might seem crazy, but this is not a place that I really want people to go to. I'd rather they walk to the train station. And at the train station itself, I thought that there was a parking cost associated with this, but I'm not actually seeing it. And honestly, I'm wondering if it's because I deleted the spaces. I'm not going to worry about it. We're just going to be happy. So now let's get this connected. And the first thing I'm going to add is the two-way track on the outside. This is going to be the track that kind of goes by the station and links up to our cargo network. And I'm trying to go about 3 units away. And the whole reason for this is I'm enabling development along here in the future if I want it. And I've decided to back this up because I actually want to lower the ground here just a little bit. And it let me get away with one. I ended up forcing this to the ground and then using constant slope. And even though the asset was here, it let me go below the asset, which is what I wanted. The whole reason I want this is we are going to have a bridge that goes up and over the top of this, and dropping this down a little bit will improve the slope here. It's actually the whole reason that we got rid of this elementary school. Same thing right here. When we reestablish the Washington Street connection, we're going to drop this underneath it. So now to connect into the station, I'm going to use the exact same track, but I'm going to go in parallel mode and get these as close as possible. And then I'm going to freeform things, which is real dangerous. And that's not perfect, but we're going to be using Move It to fix all of these, so I'm not overly concerned. The first thing I want to do is bring these 2 tracks together. So I'm going to add nodes right away. And then we'll join those right here. Then we'll take this down to single track, bump it up to double track, and then connect those in. And then we do it all one more time. Now, this is painfully ugly, but I think that we can make it look nicely fairly easily with Move It. So I'm going to begin back here and just try to tidy things up. And I'm not sure that this is perfect, but I think that this is pretty darn good. And again, this is following the same rules that I learned in the last Segunda Beach video from Planner Pete, where we don't have any more than 2 junctions occurring at once. So you can see right here, we're splitting once, and then right here, we split into 2 again. Same thing right here, same thing right here. Nice, orderly, and organized. And I think it all works really well. So now I want to make my junction over here. And I'm going to see if we can drop down a bit more, actually. Now, there's a delicate balance, and that is we've got this connection, this local connection. I don't know how much lower I can go, but I'm going to push it a little bit. And this likely isn't the height of realism, but here's the thing. You got to take some liberties every now and then, and I think that this is where we're going to go for it on a non-functional track. That's going to be just fine. Now, the whole reason that we've done that is we are going to reestablish this connection, but with this crossing being completely grade separated. Now, this is one of the reasons why I think that the train company gets on board with this. Every time I've ever worked with a rail operator, this is what they want. They want a completely grade separated crossing, and they're willing to make a lot of concessions to make that happen. I just want to make sure that we can actually clear this, and one of the easiest ways to do that is just to use a vanilla track. And now I can see that this isn't quite low enough or high enough depending on how you want to look at it. But I've got a node right here, and I can add another one right there. And then if need be, we could always try to drop the track. Yeah, the track just a little bit lower, and that's going to be perfect. And now that we have that bridge there, we can actually connect up our trams as well. So I will add tram tracks bi-directional to Washington Street all the way down. And then I think we want to link this all the way over to the street right here. And then this junction right here is really rough. I'm hoping that with Move It, I can improve this. And that was simple enough. Now it looks like we have a little bit of parking occurring on this road, which is not desirable. We actually want people to park in our parking structure if possible. So we'll block all that parking there. And then in the industrial area, we'll do the exact same thing. Now, unfortunately, people are just parking over here. That makes me really want to lower the price here a bit. So we'll call a bit of a mulligan on that parking fee. And with that, all of our modes of transportation are technically connected. So I think I'm going to temporarily relocate all of our transit into this new facility. So starting with our buses, we'll just start loading them up. And I have a feeling that some of these routes are going to be kind of nonsensical. We'll worry about that in the next one. One thing I'm going to worry about now, though, is I don't have enough bays here. So I'll add the extra platform upgrade. And honestly, I'll add the taxi stop as well. And I thought, yeah, I've got one more route over there and then one empty bay. Now it looks like there are waypoints or something that's keeping us navigating through this residential neighborhood. That cleaned everything up. Good to go there. Next, we'll move our trams, but we're gonna have to add a tram stop first. Now I think that we're gonna be on the wrong side, which is unfortunate, but we're gonna have to roll with it. We'll stop right outside of this building. And then we'll have both of our tram stops be right there. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to add this extra extension building is that it opens up pedestrian paths underneath this facility. So you should be able to come from the front of the building, go underneath, pop out here, and then walk on over to this tram facility. Now, I also want to be able to get from this platform over here, because there's underground connections there, to this tram stop. So we'll grab one of these invisible pedestrian connections, and I'm just going to add it basically from this road to that location right there. That should be enough to make that connection. And then we'll just have to see what happens. And then lastly, we're going to move our train connection. And right now it's just stopping in the middle of the track. We'll place that right here. Now in the future, we're probably going to have a variety of outside connections and they'll all line up at different bays. But for now, we just have our one and this will do the trick. And before we go any further, I just want to make sure that things are operational. Everything from our pedestrian paths up here to our trains and our buses, we're just going to make sure that everything has activity. And that's going to require that we wait just a couple of minutes. After watching this for a few minutes, it seems like everything is working with the exception of our pedestrian overpass, which is something I was a little bit worried about. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board on this. And ultimately, I think it's the connection into the garage. So I'm just going to take it back and we'll try it again. And then I'm also going to look at the connection inside of this building. And this is a little bit tricky, but I can speed things along now and just see if we actually have a connection here. And it looks like things might be slightly amiss. So I'll just add an invisible connection right there.
7 hours later.
And after a lot of futzing around, I figured out how to make this work, and it was not at all what I thought. So basically, you just have to have a normal pedestrian bridge and then make your connections with invisible paths. So that's why this looks so crazy right here. Those are invisible path connections down to the tracks. So the major advantage of this is that now we don't see some of the corruptions. So this is connected, and there are people that will from time to time walk through here, but you don't see any of the corruptions. The other nice thing is that when you're using the invisible paths, it's really easy to find the end and then see the pedestrian paths through here. So this is now completely functional, which is what I wanted to see. And the whole reason I wanted to do this right away is we're now going to add that canopy on top of here. Now for this, we're going to be using some of our static ploppables, and I'm specifically looking for shed. And the shed that I'm looking for is the Mediterranean train shed. Now this is not something that you should normally be able to plop, but static ploppables comes in clutch here. So I'm going to probably need to place 2 or 3 of these, and I'm just going to go off to the side for just a moment. And no, that doesn't make any sense. We'll do it right over the center here. And then I'm spinning it around on this end. And the main reason for that is I want the supports. One side has supports, the other does not. So now I just need to position this appropriately. And I basically want to cover up the tracks and then try to blend these nicely in the center. Was a little bit fiddly getting this to be just right, but honestly, I think that it looks absolutely outstanding. So with that, this entire facility is 100% operational, but there are 2 more things that I want to do. The first is I want to reestablish this street right here, what's Elk Street on one side and Umber on the other. We're gonna go up and over all these tracks. Now I think the way that I was initially going to try to bump it up right here and make this connection all the way across. I think that that's actually a poor idea. I will instead reestablish that road, and then we'll go up and over the top of it. And now again, I'll use Move It to clean this up a little bit. And I think the big thing is that I'm gonna drop this street down to try to get this as close to level as possible. There we go. And this is such a valuable connection that there are a bunch of buses going across here. So it just really drives home the point how much connectivity was needed across this street right here. And then the other thing that I wanted to do was get rid of some of the lights on these pedestrian roads. I always forget to do this and it's on my mind. So I'm going to do it right away. And the whole reason that I did that is the game will apply random lights to pedestrian roads, and I want a cohesive look through this entire site. This is a special place, so we're going to put in some special effort. But with that, our entire transit center is operational. So let's move on to building our transit-oriented development. With the TOD, I'm going to try to exercise a bit of restraint. I don't want to develop everything. Like we're not going to cross over here or anything like that. I think I just want to wrap the parking structure right here, have a building right here, and then maybe one back here. Everything else will be done at a later date. Now for this area, I'm thinking that we're going to go with mostly urban promenades buildings. I want the green roofs that feels like something that is part of a public project the city might require. And that's because oftentimes cities will try to demonstrate the types of things that they'd like to see developers doing. It just makes sense. So to that end, I'm going to zone some urban promenades buildings right here. And we'll have these 2x2s spawn in, and then I'm just going to grab them and mirror them on the other side. Now, while those are filling in, I'm going to steal the same buildings and wrap them over here. And I will be upfront with you. I was thinking about potentially using some of the static ploppables here, but if I can get away with not doing that, I'm going to. The main reason for that is all of these downstairs units, I don't want to have to recreate them myself. And if I use the static ploppables, I'm going to have to, which will be an absolute mess. So that means that I have to have roads here, which can also be a bit of a mess, but I feel like it's the kind of mess that I'm a little bit more excited to take on. Now I think right here I can do something a little bit tricky. I'll grab a pedestrian road and send it right here, and then throw a cul-de-sac bulb at the end just to make this thing happy. And then ultimately, I'll use some of Algendo's surfaces that are able to go over the top of some of these roads, and that should solve all my issues here. And then I just want to make sure that these are tucked fairly tight against here. And that to me looks fairly reasonable. So now I'm having a couple of issues here with the corners. So I'm overlapping things, and that's what's making it as unhappy as it is. And this is something that I was worried about, but no worries. I will get rid of that corner piece, and this is where static ploppables will help us out. And this is completely missing all of its propping, so I'm gonna have to do all of that on my own, and it also doesn't have any uses. So if I want there to be uses here, which I obviously do, I'm gonna have to use some of my object blocks. Now, I think that this looks pretty good. The only thing I want to do to improve it is center it if I can. So I'll just select all of these. And then just because we are looking at these from overhead most of the time, I tried to fix the way that the roofs look. And now I think it looks nice and clean. But here's the thing. These buildings are going to level up and they're going to look absolutely crazy. So I'm just going to make sure that all of these are locked. There, so this will stay just like that. And this reminds me a lot of some of the buildings around Denver Union Station. I think that that's going to look really nice. But we do have to bring life to this corner piece. And for that, we'll just use some of our modular zoning blocks. The cool thing is we actually have office mixed residential, and we haven't added any office to this area yet. So I think that that is indeed what I'm going to do. And I just added 3 of those in here. They're all taking their access from this transit road, so folks should walk to this. And then I want to do something with this little triangle right here. This is a really unique space. This would really not be all that accessible by cars at all, but it would be probably the most transit accessible place in the entire region. But here's the thing. There's a big drop off right here. It's a little tough to see, but you can see that we're dropping down to the train tracks. Not exactly desirable. So I'm going to attempt to use a retaining wall here. But this is that track that I did a little bit of trickery on, so I'm not sure how it's gonna work. And then we'll grab this height and just pull it up to the track. Oh, it's gonna work just fine. And that just basically created an actual buildable parcel, which is what I was looking for.
What that is, I've never seen that. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? I can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live.
Nice.
I'm not sure I can fully articulate how many mistakes I just made, but ultimately it's fine. Basically, I forgot to convert this to be the bi-directional track, which is why we haven't seen any trains coming up here, because we had a one-way track going in the wrong direction. But then I also realized that the whole reason I was having things get wonky is because I used the retaining wall right here. So I just need to not overuse it. However, if you thought I was done, we've got to use some right here as well. And I just need to control it. That's by adding nodes. Now, unfortunately, because we can't double click to add nodes, I have to do it like it's City Skylines 1, but it's not the end of the world. I am used to it. And the whole reason that I wanted to do that, again, I'm thinking about these parcels. And they would absolutely want their backyards to be level like this. That would make a ton more sense. And then over here, I'm probably going to do the exact same thing. The only thing I wish that I could do with these retaining walls is kind of back them away a little bit. And there we go. I don't know if that's good enough for much of anything right here for future development, but at least it makes me feel better. And now we have our little triangular parcel. And the first thing I have to do is formalize this with a pedestrian path. And then as much as I would like to zone right here, I don't think I'm going to get much more than maybe a building or two. So I'll do this one, and then I'll go 2 units right here, and then I think the rest is on me. And this looks pretty good, and I'm going to try to forgive some of the imperfection. It's one of the things that I struggle with. I see the buildings not perfectly lining up correctly, and I try to do it, and I end up making more problems than it's worth. So I'm just going to lock all of these into place. And then there's one final thing that I want to do with the TOD, and that's this corner right here. It seems a bit incomplete to me. And I feel like this is just the right amount of density for this area. In the future, who knows, maybe we'll redevelop and add some towers or more density, but for now, this is just right. And I'm gonna preemptively answer one question. I always get questions, would anyone wanna live in a home on a parking garage like this? The answer is yes, we actually have some of these in Madison. They're very desirable places to live. Ultimately, you're hiding the parking structure. That's what your main goal is. And there would be a very thick wall in between the parking structure and the housing, so they wouldn't even notice. And with our transit-oriented development complete, let's move on to a bit of landscaping and detailing. Now, bluntly, this is not a very large area, and because of that, I want to really dive into the detailing today and try to make sure that this is as nice as it can be. So that means I'm going to revisit every surface, every light, every bush, every single thing that makes this development what it is going to be modified, and I'm going to try to make it as clean and tight as possible. And that includes the train tracks. I have a solution to this mess that we have right here that I think is going to make it look a little bit better. So during the detailing, I'll take a look at that as well. So without further ado, let's get detailing. after over 2 hours of detailing, I present to you Paradise Bay Union Station. And I'm kind of ridiculously proud of this build. I used a couple of mods in ways that I haven't really used them a ton before. In particular, the area bucket, which I have to say, I have a local version of that mod. The version that's on Paradox Mods isn't working, but the version from the Cities 2 modding Discord that you can install locally works. And between that and the vanilla curbs, I was able to create really deliberate sidewalks that are completely custom, and they all look absolutely beautiful. The surface work, this is the best surface work I've ever done. But I also really just had a great time adding in fences. I figured out how to control the colors. Now that Recolor appears to have net lane control built into it, I was able to grab the exact color that I want and just kind of control everything in ways that I haven't been able to before. I also decided to make some adjustments over to the train tracks over here, going with single track, merging in very deliberate ways, and everything just all turned out really, really well. And because of that, there's only one more thing left to do. That's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. Now, I've got to admit, I had more fun with this build than almost any other in Cities Skylines 2. It was a mixture of the function and the detailing, and I gotta say it, I really enjoyed detailing this. This was a lot of fun. I didn't go into this with a highly detailed detailing plan, but I had some general principles about how I wanted to detail, and I feel like I've been able to execute on those and pull together a place that just, it's really coherent, it's really beautiful, it's really functional, or it will be really functional. It is working, but the routing is just absolutely crazy, and the next one will definitely fix that. But the whole thing just makes a lot of sense. It's a showpiece. It's a reason that Paradise Bay is probably the most important city in Magnolia County right now, or at least it will be in the future, because this is just a really important facility for this entire county. And I absolutely love that this build has taught me so much about the game, and in particular some of the mods. It's taught me about the fences and how I can control the colors. It's a build where I learned to use net lanes to control surfaces. And ultimately, it's just a build with a lot of activity that feels like a special place. And honestly, that is what turns a pretty vanilla build, and I know it's not vanilla, it's a very modded build, but it turns a build that feels very vanilla into something that feels cozy and like it's a real place, which I just love this build so much. But that's not the only thing that I love about today's build. The commercial fix has been absolutely amazing. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but unemployment and homelessness is way down. And if we take a look at the numbers, that's what I thought. 2.4% unemployment, only 89 homeless citizens in all of Magnolia County. Now, because we adjusted the taxes so much, we are seeing a major demographic shift occurring. We're losing a lot of population, then we'll see things jump up. All of our demand curves are kind of going crazy as well. Right now, there's no office demand, but that does pop up and down. And if I speed it along, well, I thought I'd see our office rebound, but I think our demographic shift is still in full force. And if we take a look in here, we have a high skill labor availability problem, which is kind of funny. It's kind of like all of those highly educated people that we shoved out of the community need to make their way back into it now that the commercial bug is resolved. Now, what this bug being fixed actually looks like is pretty fascinating. If we take a look at just our commercial jobs and bump this back a little ways, you can see that we have this gigantic jump when we added this mod into the mix. And it looks to me like this is about 8,000 jobs. So it's not a surprise that adding 8,000 jobs to your community when you're struggling with jobs is going to fix things. But I'd say that the jury is still out on this mod, so I'm going to keep it in my mod set. I'll let you know in the next one how it's changed things, and we'll continue to evaluate because this is going to be really interesting. If this actually is the fix, hopefully it's something that can spur Colossal Order into making this fix in the game itself. But I think for today, we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things you could have been doing today, but you decided to hang out with me and build this station. And for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. This has been a big build and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.